I have so much on my mind. I feel like I'm scatterbrained right now. Welcome to it. It's 9 after the hour 6. I'm going to replay that because what you've just heard now in the kickoff is Djokovic, Novak Djokovic, the champion, the man looking for that 24th slam, speaking about Carlos Alcaraz. What he says there is so amazing when he gives him his props, and we'll go back to that and we'll speak a little bit of tennis. Welcome to it. It's Sports Not Amplified with Andile. I am Andile Ncube. It's an exciting day. It's a good one. But firstly, thank you so much for the touchdown. I wish you guys would have seen Touch today. I think of all it's over a year that we've worked here. I don't think he's ever been dressed better than he was today. Huh? Did you see that shoe? Malcolm? No. Yeah. Touch. Please take a photo and post on Instagram. Looked great today. It's 10 after the hour 6. And I'm a little scatterbrained today because it's off-season in football, and we do want to speak a little bit of football every now and then, but not all the time, and want to explore other things. And in doing that, I did a deep dive into different sporting codes, right? You know, it's crazy what sports are trying to be made to be mainstream. Different sports that people are trying to make mainstream. And hence I'm scatterbrained because of so much that I've been going through trying to get amazing things to introduce you to. But one of them is called a phone booth boxing. Because they feel like the now generation of people want things to be immediate and action all the time. So they've got something called phone booth where you get into a phone booth. You know those London phone booths that people take pictures in, the red ones. It's a meter by, it's 1 meter by, it's a 1 meter square. It's 1 by 1 meters. You get in there and you go back to back. So your opponent and your back are touching and they go, and you turn around and you start boxing. But it means there's no walking around. There's no getting away. There's not a single second where there's no punching. And I was like, okay, cool. We're not getting into that. And then there's slap fighting as well. We used to do this at Kasi, that's become a sport where you slap me, you put powder on your hands and you slap me, then it's my turn. I'm like, this is brain damage waiting to happen. So no, we're not going down that pigeonhole. It's 11 after the hour 6. Instead, we're going to be speaking about what most people are saying is a future prospect to be the greatest of all time. You watched the match on Sunday. You saw the young 20-year-old who's now made almost 300 million rands in his career. He's 20 years old. Novak Djokovic, who many are saying is the greatest player ever, says, this kid is myself, Roger Federer, and Nadal put together. Let's chat. We're going to be speaking to Stephan, who's a tennis analyst as well as a coach, speaking about the Wimbledon final, but focusing on Carlos Alcaraz, the 20-year-old who is now Wimbledon champion. It's 15 after the hour 6 on the Mighty Metro FM. I mean, I remember when you speak about tennis, my early memories of tennis were, of course, the likes of Stephan, and we could go on, but mostly the person I loved most was Andre Agassi. You know, and then you had Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi. Those years, you had Boris as well. You had McEnroe. Those are some of the greats that we remembered. But what then happened is we got a trio of players in the same era that made very light work of the accomplishment of some of those great names. You had the current, still playing now and still a contender in Novak Djokovic, right? 23 slams, and you had partly South African blood a little bit there. Then you had a Nadal as well. So those three together, you know, they went on to redefine it by partly South African blood, of course, about Roger Federer. Those three went to redefine what excellence was in tennis. Their rivalry, spanning the last 10 years or so, was amazing. But we knew that something new would come. We knew that something new would come, but in what form? Medvedev was another one that we thought, hey, here it is. It's going to be Medvedev. He's going to be the new thing. But in the last 2 years, Carlos Alcaraz has come in and he's just done something fantastic. After beating a man that was almost unbeatable at Wimbledon finals. This is what he had to say. This is Novak Djokovic speaking on Alcaraz after the match and what he had to say about the boy's game. What he thinks are his strong points. But then he goes on to compare him to Nadal. He goes on to compare him to some of the greats that he's played with that dominated this era, Federer and himself. Have a listen to what the GOAT said about this young man.
I think people have been talking in the past 12 months or so about his game being consisting of certain elements from Roger Ruff and myself. I would agree with that. I think he's got basically best of all three worlds. Got this mental resilience and really maturity for someone who is 20 years old. It's quite impressive. He's got this, you know, Spanish bull mentality of competitiveness and fighting spirit and incredible defense that we've seen with Rafa over the years. And I think he's got some nice sliding backhands that he's got. Maybe he's got some similarities with my backhands, and he's just two-handed backhands and defense and being able to adapt. I think that has been my personal strength for many years, and he has it too. So I haven't played a player like him ever, to be honest. You know, Roger and Rafa have their own obviously strengths and weaknesses, but Carlos is a very complete player, amazing adapting capabilities that I think are a key for longevity and successful career on all surfaces.
I mean, you get that a lot in sport. You know, you'll get a young rugby player coming in and everybody will say, oh, here's a great player that's coming in. He's going to be amazing. In football as well. You know, oh, here's an amazing player. I remember when Nani hit the scene as a young player. Oh, he's going to be the next big thing. And very, very often, they don't live up to that billing. But what Novak Djokovic has had to say about this kid is absolutely the biggest compliment he can pay him. He says he's got the best of all three. He's got the best elements of Rafael Nadal's game. He's got the best elements of Roger Federer's game, including the spirit in him. And we saw that in that final. But he's also got the best of me. I have never played a player like him. This is a man who spent the last 10 years or so playing Rafa, playing the best in the world, really. Playing Federer. I can't have this conversation by myself. Let's go to Stephan de Kock. He's a tennis analyst and coach who's given us his time, gracious enough to talk to us about this. I'm pretty sure, Stephan, by now you've heard what Djokovic has had to say. We've read up about this boy. The last 12 months, we've all been watching him. But are we not perhaps here setting him up for failure? We're touting him to be a GOAT, even though this is his first Wimbledon finals, victory over Djokovic. But already we're saying here is the future of tennis.
Good evening, Andile. Yes, it's a mouthful. You know, I think exciting times for tennis. First of all, let's start there. And that interview, I listened to the interview, and you know, it was great words coming from Novak. You know, I know Novak's not everyone's cup of tea, and Novak can be very controversial, and people perceive him as a little bit of arrogant.
Arrogant, yeah.
You know, but you know, the things that he said was so true, and I feel like a lot of people didn't actually appreciate from a tennis perspective actually what happened yesterday, because what we didn't just see history happening. Excuse me, but there's so much more to that match. You know, just to start off with the tempo Alcaraz started off, and some people said to me, yeah, but he's making a lot of unforced errors. You know, he's overplaying, he's being too aggressive, but he had to play that certain game style, even if it's not paying off in the beginning. But he had to invest in being aggressive and taking those risks, because if you give Novak just a sneeze and you let him in and you think you're going to guide the ball and hit it to safe zones in the court, he's going to eat you up for breakfast. Now, Alcaraz invested in the first set, and then that spilled over, although he lost the first set 6-1. Now, that is such maturity. And then he started executing as the match went on. And that was one thing that stood out for me. But then as I was watching the match from the sidelines, I said, okay, he wins the second, he wins the third, but now it becomes a real match, because we all know that. And he's talking about Alcaraz having this bullfighting Spanish mentality, but so does he. You know, he's got this Serbian fighting spirit behind him. You know, and that's what we saw coming to that fourth set. he took that set, and Alcaraz put everything to him. He gave him the same intensity, the same tempo, and Novak took that fourth 6-3. So then we had a match on our hands. And that's when we really can see when the best player stands out in the world. It's when we get to that fifth set in Grand Slams. Do they fade? And usually with somebody that's their first time in a Grand Slam, not experienced, 20 years old, most probably, yes, he won Queens. He's only played 3 or 4 tournaments on grass. And, yes, it's a great run, but now it counts. And when we got in that fifth, it was amazing. I got goosebumps because Alcaraz raised his level. He started executing even more so. And then he changed his game patterns at times. He went to Novak's strengths when Novak didn't expect it. He could hold the ball slightly, and Novak would choose a side, and he could get the ball behind Novak. That was immense. And then serving out the match, just thinking about that maturity. And Novak said it in his acceptance speech. He said, that stood out for me. You were just too good on the day.
And here was the other thing, Novak and Rafa, you're not going to get a lot of flair in their game, especially Novak. He's got a very straightforward, very disciplined game. Whereas, with the flair, you saw a little bit of nice little drop and spins and all sorts of things that he was doing there that gave it not Monfils flair, but a little bit of flair nonetheless, which was a little bit enjoyable as well. But I thought to myself, how dare you hit balls like that when you're playing a Novak Djokovic? You could tell the stares at the end of all of those balls when he'd hit a little bit of a spin by the net. You could see Novak going, who are you? How dare you do this to me?
Definitely. I think you're referring to the drop shots.
It was the drop shots, yeah.
And the thing is, the drop shot is one of the most difficult shots to hit under pressure. So if you're up on the scoreboard and momentum is up, yes, then there's no tension. You can, we call it in tennis, field shots. So the field shots becomes easy when there's no tension. But once you add tension, now your muscles are tensing up. Now you want to have a field shot, it becomes so much more difficult, but that is one thing Alcaraz can do. You don't know if I'm defending, I'm going to stand back and defend from the back, because that's what Novak does really well. Beforehand, before the match, I said Alcaraz has to serve like an absolute stud on the day, and he needs to be ready for the return of Novak, because Novak neutralized the situation really well. Even if it's a great serve, and we can go back when Novak played in 2019, he played Kevin Anderson in the final. And Kevin Anderson was serving bombs in the final, and the ball's coming back. 2 shots later, neutralize the situation. Now Novak is attacking. So now you start scratching your head. You're saying, I'm serving 20 kilometers an hour. I'm bombing the ball tee wide. The ball is coming back. What do I need to do more? And that is what Novak does to you. And these Chinese 10,000 cuts that he gives you, and later on you just run out of ideas. You have to take such big risks. You start missing, and you drown. Basically, that's what you do by your own mistakes.
And if you want to know,
Alcaraz didn't do that. He executed, and he took those risks, but still executed.
If you want to know how big this is, I look back because I couldn't remember the last time a player outside of the big three, firstly, in Roger Federer, Djokovic, as well as Rafael Nadal, and then you can add an Andy Murray to that. 2002. That's how long these guys have been dominating for. They've been winning, the 4 of them, for the last almost 13 years. He's the first outside of those guys to win a Wimbledon. That's how big this is. Is this a passing of the baton? Is this the new king now? Is this Simba? Are we hurling him above the pride and saying, here is the new king of the court?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a systematic passing of the baton, but it's not going to be overnight. I definitely feel there's fresh air that's blowing in on the men's tour, and we can feel it. You can see the ages, even in the top 100 in the world. You know, I think there's only like 5 players that's above 30. You know, and that in the last 10 to 15 years was unheard of. Well, half of the top 100 players of the world in the world were above 30. So yes, with COVID and everything that happened, some of the players stayed on longer. They were protected a little bit. And now they've moved out, and the younger guys and the younger guns have stepped it up. You know, you earlier spoke about Medvedev, you know, Tsitsipas. We must remember these boys, these men, are they 25, 26, Berrettini, you know, Rublev, he's 25. You know, they're still young, you know, and there's a lot of tennis to be played. But Alcaraz being so complete and being so complete on different surfaces, and that's in the interview, if you want to take just a one bit, is how you adapt from one surface to another and then still play the best possible tennis that's almost, if I can put in inverted commas, that's sort of flawless. You know, and that's what's going to be scary, is if him and Novak is starting to meet each other continuously in Grand Slam finals, what's going to happen? Is the tables going to turn? Is it going to be similar to what we saw with Roger and Novak? What happened? You know, where Roger just didn't. He was good enough, but he had to play on the day exactly right. There couldn't be any sort of mistakes. He couldn't let the momentum swing in the match. And if he did, even in that final where he was serving for the match at Wimbledon, he lost that final. You know, is that what we're going to start seeing? You know, where we got a new rivalry between Alcaraz and Djokovic. How great is that? Because if we think back, and you mentioned that earlier, Sampras, Agassi, and we had Mr. Federer. And he competed against those boys, and he played them. And, you know, they moved out, and then we had Roger, and then we had Hewitt and Roddick, and then they moved out, and Andile came in. So if you think Roger was in 3 eras, you know, Novak was in one long era. Is this a new era? Is Novak going to be that player that goes into his 40s and still going to be in Grand Slam finals? That's doable. He's 36, turning 37. You know, that's 3 years from 30 or 40. You know, so, oh man, I just think, you know, this is a new mini series that we're watching, and it's going to be so much drama, Andile.
I mean, I think about classics, right? But before I even go there, you mentioned, you know, Rustic, you mentioned Tsitsipas and Medvedev as well. These were the next in line. These were players that were next in line from, you know, that amazing trio that we've seen over the last 10, 15 years. Has Alcaraz come in and overtaken a Medvedev at Tsitsipas?
I won't say he overtook them. I just think he's on his own journey, you know, and he's oblivious of what the other players are doing. And I can give you an example. I was in Estoril 4 years ago, you know, and I saw Alcaraz training with young Carlos Ferrero, and everyone's saying, "Oh, this kid is going to be extremely good, better than that." Oh, and he was practicing on the court next to me while I was working with my players, and I was like, "Yeah, I can see he's good, but he's not, you know, it's not standing out, you know." But then I saw him 3 months later, and I was like, "Hey, man."
Stephen, hold on. You're not going to just come here and just bruise and breeze over that. You got to see him when he was still molding this thing, when he was still building this thing. You actually saw him live.
Exactly. And I saw him week in, week out on the tour. And then he was 220. Then he was 180. Then he was 150. And in the end of that year, turning 70, the guy broke into the top 100. And I was like, wait a little bit. You didn't see it coming? There was nothing that said this is special to you? Because I'm a little bit of a pessimist. You know, like you said earlier on, when people are calling it out and someone is 200 in the world and they're 16, I go like, hold on. You know, let's
no, because that's nothing new. That we've seen.
Yeah, because we see often kids coming in 200, 16, 17
Yeah.
years old, and they fade, and then they get to 80 in the world, and then the moment is too big, and the expectation on their shoulders are too big, and then the intrinsic expectations becomes big, you know, and then it just doesn't evolve like it should, you know. And I think Dimitrov is one of the
That's a good example, yeah.
You know, everyone mentioned him as baby fed in the beginning, and, you know, he never lived up to those expectations. So when after year one, you know, after Estoril, I saw him, and I saw him actually get at Estoril, and when he played Estoril the first time, and I'm just using this tournament, this is a small ATP 250 tournament, very intimate, so you see each other a lot, you talk, you know, and I just use that as a reference because it's basically a year later, and the guy's 80 in the world. You know, now he played in the major. The previous year, he was playing from the qualies. You know, and that year, I said, listen here, I don't know if he's going to be top 10, but he's good. He's going to be top 50. He ended that year, the second year, top 30 in the world. Then you start asking questions, and what is he doing? And he's just improving every week, and that's one of the strengths. How he adapts, how he learns. He's so teachable. He's so humble. He's so hungry for more, and he enjoys what he's doing.
If you're wondering why we speak to Stephan de Kock about this thing, you just heard him. The subject matter today. He says, I saw him. I was there week in, week out. Didn't see anything special till a year later when he just blossomed. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to play some of your voice notes. Today's show, I'd like to be a lot more interactive. If you want to give us a call and speak to Stephan and ask him some questions about the final, about anything Wimbledon and tennis related, really, this is your opportunity to do so on 086 000 2160, WhatsApp on 060 552 7303. It's 1834. We're speaking to Stephan de Kock here, who's a tennis coach and analyst as well. We're looking back to Wimbledon. I mean, yesterday we breezed over it, didn't we? We spoke about it, but not in as much detail as it deserved, because history is being made on that tennis court by a 20-year-old who's now amassed almost 300 million rands in total career earnings in the short 2.5 years that he's been able to win as much as he's been able to win. I mean, Wimbledon alone sets him into that tone. Let's hear what some of you have had to say on our WhatsApp line. It's 060 552 7303.
Yes, good evening, Andile. I see that small boy Carlos got a future. To dethrone the king of clay, Djokovic, is not a joke, but we believe that he should be humble and everything will come to pass. His dreams are going to fulfilled if he just keep humble and grounded, because most of the times he's still young, then he can get away with those things which will destroy his future. But we are happy for him, and also we are happy that Djokovic can acknowledge that young boy that is a future to come, that all the people love tennis, they will acknowledge that guy is got talent. Thanks. This is Mike from Cape Town. Big up, Andile.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Andile, Jimmy Mabadi one of Motsepe, Le Para Haringama Para, Le Para Haringama Para. Andile, Kautam Fanawala Shagata tennis, Bonogovici, Limushimano, Lemecolo, Haringamecolo. Andile, Ompoze, Mone, most South Africa, where is producing the best players that tennis. Copala Uti says South African tennis, Moshu, Mobagata Martalusite Bila, Andile, Uruhira Halan, Jimmy Mabadi busy one of Motsepe.
That's a good one. We'll ask that.
Evening, Andile.
Hey.
Evening, Metro FM. The weekend that was. That final between Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic reminded me of the FIFA World Cup in Qatar between Messi and Mbappe.
The greatest game
so
ever played.
Out of this world. I really enjoyed that one. On the football side, I would love to welcome Declan Rice to the Arsenal. It's in Rustenburg.
Sinong, I appreciate that. I honestly think that final of the World Cup was the greatest football match ever played. We're going to get into the tennis version of that in just a few. Play that last one there before we take it.
Yo. That boy is very, very mnandi, that one. Hey, it's too much. But a coach is a coach, my friend. Let's not run away from the fact that Novak Djokovic is a coach. He's been giving out praises, but hey, people have been seeing nonsense when they play him the second time. So I believe that the boy is good. He's coming up nice. And yeah, for sure, congrats to him. But I still believe in the coach. The coach is a coach. By the way, it was a nice match.
Oh, what a nice match indeed. Let's take Lisibe out in Neguruleni. Victor called him out yesterday. He wasn't brave enough to come on, but today we're speaking tennis, and here he is. Lisibe.
Good evening, long time, and good evening to your guests in the studio.
Hey, man, it's always great to have you. Talk to me.
Yeah, no, it was a very good final, end-to-end stuff. First and foremost, I would like to ask your guest, what did you think of the women's final? Because I was kind of rooting for Ons, the lady from Tunisia. Unfortunately, she couldn't go all the way. But coming to Alcaraz, I think the star is born. I'll only take my final decision if I'm rooting for him after the US Open, which is taking place in the next couple of months. But he's got nice moves. It's 3-in-1 as per Novak has rooted for him. But yeah, I'm very much impressed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that one there. Vondrousova, of course, beating Jabeur in the women's final there. 6-4, 6-4 is what Lisibe is speaking about. But let's go back to some of the questions asked there, Stephan. You saying you saw the boy, you were around him, and in that setting that you guys are normally in, you get to see the attitude. You get to see how they behave. Humility is going to be a big thing for him now. I mean, he's world known. We in South Africa on Metro FM speaking about him. What do you make of how he needs to carry himself now compared to what you saw?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with what Mike said there. Mike from Cape Town, from the mother city. It's a little bit rainy in Cape Town today, so I hope he's got his heaters on. So, no, Mike is 100% correct. You know, it's easy when it can come to your head and, you know, you don't stay grounded. But if you've got the right team with you, Andile, and that's the biggest thing that you always have to do as a player. And when Alcaraz started, they groomed him as a top athlete and a performer, you know, he's got the right team around him. Now, if you have to think as young Carlos Herrera, his attitude, the way his demeanor is next to the court, how he works with, on tour we call him Carlitos, how he works with Carlitos, it's different. You know, he walks in the locker. After he even won his first Grand Slam as a 19-year-old, you couldn't see him walking around and not talking to people. He walks in the lockers as if he is just like everyone else. And that's similar to Nadal, you know. And I think also, you know, he's got Nadal as a mentor. You know, he's got a lot of great Spanish players as his mentor that he's looking up to. So I definitely think they will keep him grounded and they will help him. Believe me, I don't think these 2 Grand Slams is going to get to his head. It's going to give him some confidence and belief in his ability and what he can achieve more. But I definitely think he will stay grounded.
Very important that. And the other question that was asked is, and I want to go to this, us versus the world, because, you know, we can speak of many sports and how disadvantaged South Africans are, et cetera, but is tennis one of those really? Surely we should be able to, with the amount of courts that we have, it's the expense of tennis, the teaching of tennis. Why is it that South Africans, with the ability that we have, with the physical strength that we have, why haven't, I mean, I remember Wayne Ferreira back in the day, and you know, that was our one great hope, and it never, back in the day that is, and it never really got into winning Wimbledon type of levels. Why is it that we aren't competing at that level? We do know that in the quads, I mean, we are French Open champions as it is now, but why is it that in the men's single, the women's single, we don't have that one lone star?
Andile, I think it's an open-ended question, and there's different angles to this question, and I think it's a difficult one to answer because, you know, you're going to step on some toes, but I'll try to keep it PC, and I will be honest with you, I think it's structures. If you looked at the structures of disabled tennis and wheelchair tennis, the amount of work that went into that and how they put it together and the sponsorships and the development of that and working with these players in the last 20 years. It's amazing. And what are we achieving, you know? So if we just reflect that back to able-bodied tennis and we say, okay, what are we putting into tennis in South Africa? Able-bodied tennis. Why can't we produce these players? Because players are coming through. Even if there's no assistance from a federation, you know, I mean, from young age, under 8, under 10, 12, 14, 16, parents have to fork out. They need to get their coaches, their guidance. Unfortunately, is a sport that people say is a rich man's sport. But we see more players coming through that's not wealthy or rich. It happens across the world because they're hungry. Sometimes the rich kids, they don't come through, even if their parents have the money, but they don't have the will and drive and the passion, you know, and the dedication. So we do have great coaches in South Africa. You know, we've got passionate players. Yes, money is a big question because, yes, you can travel in South Africa and around South Africa, but that's not going to get you to the top. And it's when we have to travel internationally, we're disconnected from the rest of the world. We're at the bottom. In Africa, so it's far for us to travel. You know, sometimes
to have proper competition to get us right, we need to play the Europeans, we need to play the Americans, and that's where the cost is.
And you have to step it up bit by bit. So you usually start in South Africa, then you play, let's say you top junior, then you start playing junior international events in Africa. So you'll go, let's say Zimbabwe, and you'll go Kenya and Ghana, and then you'll go up to North Africa. Now you sort of solidify yourself. You top 200 juniors in the world, but that's not going to get you to the top. Now you have to travel to Asia, Europe, America. You have to play the bigger events, and that gets costly. You know, that's a lot of money, and that's where we need sponsors. You know, to help out our federation to that. Not just give the money to the federation, but where the federation will say there is a talented player, and we're not taking that player from his coach. Because that's another conversation. A lot of the times, federations, they've got their own structure. But now they take the player from his coach, they develop him to top 200 juniors in the world, and they put him in a federation structure, and the kid is not producing any more the results because he's been taken out of his environment, his teaching environment, and the people that he entrusts, you know. And so Tennis Australia has done that. And Tennis France has done that, where they actually they look after the coach and the player where he's training. If it's in Limpopo or if it's in Eastern Cape, wherever it might be, they would donate the money, but they'll keep track. Obviously, you just can't use the money. They will know, okay, bookkeeping, where's the player.
I mean, it's from what I'm hearing you say, it's the same issue that we have in every other sporting code. You know, it's somebody who's responsible enough to say, I'm going to source the money for it. It's people that are responsible enough to say, we're going to give you the money for it, etc., etc. And then the maintenance of such to make sure that as far as Limpopo to Cape Town, somebody's unearthing that talent. I completely hear you. And on that last one that we heard, speaking about this match being great, I mean, liken it to the World Cup final. I don't think so. I don't think by any measure that this was a classic. I think it was a great final, but I don't see it. I mean, there was that one rally there was at one point that was the most hard-fought 4 points. I can't remember. I think it was in the third set. It was such a hard-fought 4 point to win the set. If I could be mistaken, I know you'll know which one I'm talking about. But I don't think by any stretch of the imagination this was a classic final. Because then I think of Rafa and Roger in 2008, Roger and Roddick in 2009, but most importantly, Novak and Roger in 2019. And I'm like, if that's the bar of where classics are, this was just a great match.
It's difficult to define classic because usually a classic is when players are already established and we know their names and then we know what they can achieve. So the tennis public or the general public, they got to know young Alcaraz for the last, let's say, 2 years. Let's be honest. Only the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So he's a little bit unknown. They know he's a great clay court player, and that's clay court specialist, and he's good on a hard court. He made a good transition to a hard court. So I think, personally, that this match was one of the best finals I've watched. You know,
what?
But 100% on how the intensity, the tempo.
Is this based on the story behind it, or based on? But I guess you can't separate the two.
Tennis specific. If I put tennis specifics down on the table, on the tempo.
Come on, Stephen. You remember Rafa Roger in 2008?
100%.
2019, Novak. Even the Roderick and Roger in 2009. Come on.
It's very debatable. That's why I say they were already established. So you had these names. There was a hype. Is it going to be Roger? Is it going to be Nadal? Nadal is coming up. Roger is established. Nadal is a clay court player. He's transitioning well to the grass. But Wimbledon has kicked the grass a little bit longer and slower. They're watering the grass a little bit more. There was a lot of debate around that. Why is the grass court slowing down? Grass court tennis is not the same as it used to be. Players are not serving volleying. Nadal's era, players are staying back more. You know, so you had all this controversy, two different players, two different styles. You know, so yes, if you look at the drama and the picture unfolding, and that became a classic. But if you looked at back then, maybe it wasn't such a big classic as we're looking back now. You know, definitely, I would say the latter stage in 2018, 17, 19, yes, then it became real classic battles because, you know, it was standing out. But this is, I think if we look back in 10 years from now.
This is top 5 best finals for you?
It's definitely. I think the quality of what happened in that
top
match,
5 best finals. Stephen, she was me and you. We're having lunch and having this debate. I'm coming down to Cape Town just for this.
And there's a lot of people who are going to ask me why. But and I can explain to them because how Alcaraz had to go in that match about playing that match. And that's why I say from a tennis-specific side, you know, he had to play a certain style. Novak didn't roll over once. Novak didn't give him the match. Novak didn't fold under pressure. Novak didn't go and serve a bunch of double faults. You know, the quality that happened and the movement on grass was out of this world. You know, a lot of the times we watch these matches on grass and one player is dictating with a serve and the other player can't get into return games. If you look at both these guys were serving 210, 215. Alcaraz was serving 220. He was hitting a forehand on the run, the biggest forehand we've seen the whole tournament, blasting it past him. You know,
I can hear you. You're writing the movie already. Screenplay coming up. It's 6:51.
If you look at the winners, Alcaraz was hitting 66 winners in that match out of 168 points. Novak hit 32 winners out of 166 points. Can you just did you see the risk taking that Alcaraz had to do and the execution that had to take place? It's amazing.
It really is. We've got Stephen on the line who's just gone from giving us analysis and stats to just pure passion. We're going to be taking your calls. Smongaleni, I see you. We'll come back with you. And I see a question here as well about the passing of the baton, so to speak. Let's take a break. When we come back, it's your WhatsApps and calls on 086 000 2160 060 552 7303. Is it a classic, the greatest match you've seen play? I still say that 2019. Oof. 6:53 on the Mighty Metro FM. Hey, Cambio on Metro and talk tennis. Hey, football. Guys, let's see it. Says Gail Monfleece, an exciting player, but his flair and showboating has been the enemy of his game. Alcaraz, on the other hand, is direct and purposeful when he does that same thing. Bonga Zulu says, I was a fan of Pete Sampras. When he retired, I became the biggest fan of Roger Federer. Now that he has retired, I'm running with Carlos Alcaraz. It's official, and it's going to be a long journey. The future looks bright for him. What a time to be alive. Let's go to Smongaleni out in KZN. Smongaleni. Boga, Stephen and I don't agree on this one because he says this features in his top 3 finals of all time. What did you think of this final?
I really agree.
Hi, Bo.
I really agree. I really agree. Looking at Carlos and Novak Djokovic, we are talking about someone who has been
Dominating, yeah.
Top for so many years, for the record of total of 389 weeks in 12 different years.
Amazing.
I think Alcaraz put in a great performance on the weekend, and I was favoring Novak Djokovic, but when I was watching the game, it turned to be sour for me. Hey, I was expecting Djokovic to walk in the park there, but it was not to be. Hey.
It was not to be. No, I completely understand.
Yeah, and lastly, I would like to recommend the supporters of football, KZN. I was not able to get in on the show.
No, yesterday. Go for it.
Yeah, abo Potamsi Lampoetu, abo Ukubevu ZN Lamonti, Udlamini lo amazulu yambolo vela shayiwo map.
Mazimpe la shayi ndlamu meqeda.
Ayibo abo Queen nabo Zampiriri besibambisene mfethu. I think we attended almost every game for Ibafana Bafana
during the Kock.
Yes, in fact. And I saw myself, you made me Imomish of the Week Soccer Zone.
Congratulations, you got your 15 minutes. Oh, I remember that. Who a lawyer?
Yeah, I mean,
congratulations. You're a superstar. You're a celebrity. You can start taking pictures and signing autographs. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. And I appreciate your constant support. Here's another one here. Mpo says, there is a definite shift in the hierarchy of tennis. Djoko, the last of his generation, of a generation. I agree that there might be a slight shift with the young guns that we met, but I don't think that this is an end of an era, so to speak, for Djoko.
No, definitely. I definitely think this is the start of a new era, just with a new rivalry. That's basically what we're going to see now. And this is, like I've referred to Roger, when the passing of Agassi and Sampras, when he competed against them, and then you had Hewitt and Roddick, and you had those bunch of players coming through, and then Nadal started. You had 1 year, another year, 10 years, 10 years. It's amazing. Yeah, I really think this is going to be a new rivalry. And let's say, for instance, Novak will play the next 4 years at least to the top of his ability, like he's playing now. We're looking at basically 20 Grand Slam finals, and let's say they meet each other at least half of it, 10. Imagine that. Huh? That's a new movie that we're scripting just right in front of us.
Huh. Exciting time, Stephen. Listen, it's been great speaking tennis. Really, really enjoyed every single second of it. What a great final, and what a great way to wrap up Wimbledon. Of course, I look forward to many more chats, because I think we haven't seen the last of them. Timmy says there's one last one. Who is it? Patrick. Timmy, very quickly, do we have Patrick on the line? All right, no, we're not going to have time to take that. Stephen, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
So much, Andile.
I appreciate you.
Really
thank you.
Appreciate it. And next up is the US Open. Huh? That's the last Grand Slam of the year, and
we'll get into it.
There's going to be a lot of talk about that. So, looking forward to have a few chats about that.
Indeed. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. 1858. Hey, yesterday, Mazola told me that Morocco Swallows Football Club are bringing in a new sponsor. I think I told you it was going to be Drip. And today they announced it, that Drip is their new technical sponsor. That's going to be who's giving them their kit and all of that. I mean, I think it's such a great thing to see us, one of our very own, Lekau, from the boot of his car. I remember when he was starting to sell, very early on, he'd go to these events where people are partying and he'd sell his sneakers. To see him now sponsoring or partnering up with the Morocco Swallows Football Club, he needs to be studied. We need to speak about him and his business acumen and how he's gotten here. 3 after the hour 7. Thank you so much for joining us and having a conversation. They said, hi, Manandita, there's things you can't do on Metro FM. There's things you can't do between 6 and 7. We're multi-versed people. And it's amazing to know that you want to hear about tennis, you want to speak about other things, and I appreciate you for going on that journey with us. My name is Andile Ncube. I've got an amazing team. Timothy Maranda, Malcolm Glovu, Thabo Nkwala, and of course, the Lights Camera Action crew, who make sure that we can watch this live as we go. I appreciate you. Pela, and it's all me.